Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now, we're taking a look here today at Fantom, which is a request from my patron, Alex. Thank you so much for requesting that I cover this here. I do appreciate you. And I just want you to know, if you are new to the channel, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. I always got to throw that out there, but I can tell you that I have 15 years of trading experience, a little bit over. And in my tenure, I can tell you it's been a great experience. Yes, there's been some heartache in the first few years, but I've really figured things out. I trend between 80-85% success rate overall in my trades, and I share all those with my patrons too. So feel free to check that out in the link in the description below. I provide you with spot trading. I'm actually working out some bots here as well, so we can kind of fully automate the process. But generally speaking, provide you with best practice entry targets, best profit targets, sell targets, everything you need to know to kind of navigate this industry, because it can kind of be crazy, tumultuous. It goes up, it goes down, never quite sure which way to go. So it's nice to have somebody on your side. So thank you again, Alex. Appreciate you making the request. Now, moving forward as well, keep this in mind. I have a Telegram community, free of charge, obviously a good place to check out. Reference that in your own time, of course, because you can kind of just learn by osmosis. A lot of good folks in there as well. So keep that in mind too. But without further ado, I'm going to just go ahead and get into the charts. Let's jump into it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here at Fantom. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, get a baseline on the market so we know exactly what's going on. Therefore, we can understand more specifically when we make an investment that we're on the right track, right? Because Bitcoin really controls the market, and if we don't know what it's doing, we don't know much at all, right? So that's kind of shooting in the dark. And when it comes to trading, this is educated, investing, right? You're not just gambling. You don't just jump in when you feel good. This feeling has nothing to do with it. All right. So again, that's why we look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first. Ethereum is a little less important, but I think it is still important to understand, because a lot of coins that we look at are on the ERC20 blockchain. So quick foundational, 4-hour time frame would be ideal to check it out. And that's what we're going to do here. So first and foremost, to preface, I get this question a lot, so I just say it on every video. I use TradingView.com desktop application. Link in the description below for a free month if you're considering trying before you buying and jumping in there. So check that out in your own time, of course. Now, first of all, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the 4-hour chart. This is kind of the standard thing that I like to look at on Bitcoin, just to get a quick understanding of what's going on here. And as we can see, we've got some support and resistance levels here, some channels essentially. Now, the last few days it was ramping back up, came up to about 44, almost 45,000, kind of got rejected out there. I would venture to guess that 45,000 is kind of a new resistance based on the fact that it couldn't break that. And then, of course, on Friday we had the sell-off from the expiration for the Bitcoin and Ethereum options. So the options expired, those contracts, and essentially sent the price down. Thankfully, I was able to notify my patrons and kind of get on the right track there with them. But generally speaking, anytime you see a large expiration that's going to occur, especially based on the fact that the market is lower than it was previously, a lot of expirations occurred yesterday, and those contracts weren't fulfilled, and they had to pay the piper. The price went down. So that's generally how that works. But regardless, that caused that price decrease. So what we should probably expect this weekend is maybe just a slow creep up to about 44,000. I'm expecting it to stay within the channel of about 41 to 44,000. I think that's pretty standard considering. Normally weekends are pretty green, but I think there's a lot of, kind of indecision in the market right now, at least with Bitcoin. So we might not see a lot of activity over the weekend here, whereas I think more so we're going to start seeing some altcoins start to kind of take off. Probably the large market capitalization coins, the good stable coins essentially are going to be kind of ramping back up. Okay. Again, they're not called stable coins. I refer to them as that, but you get what I'm saying. The ones that are more, the ADAs, the Solanas, those are all ones that we're going to probably see kind of come back here in the near future because they have those good fundamentals and they're just something that's going to continue to increase. Regardless, so that's kind of where we're at for the 4-hour chart. So just taking a look at that, one last little note here is that we've got, of course, 46,800 is kind of a major resistance level. And of course, down below here, we've got about 38,000. We didn't come close to that recently. I mean, we kind of did. We got down to about 39.6, but generally speaking, on the one-day chart, 40, 41,000, those are two pretty strong support levels, okay? All right, looking at Ethereum. Let's take a quick look here. Now, Ethereum isn't really doing a lot. Honestly, it's pretty much performing the exact same as Bitcoin. So I would say that, as long as you kind of understand that we've got a support level here at about 2,900, it's kind of wavering between the two. You can't figure out if it wants to be a support or resistance level. So honestly, at this point, we can just kind of just call it a, I think it would be more of a support. Let's go and take a quick look. Yeah, so until this breaks above on the 1-day chart, we are considered basically as a resistance. So 2,900 is presently a resistance level. And also note too, we've got a resistance about 3,200. And then what's cool too here though is about 2,750 is a support on the 1-day chart. So we'll just go ahead and mark that for later. So just know if you're going to be trading Ethereum, you got 2,750 as a pretty close approximate for a support level. Whereas I feel like if it comes down, it'll bounce and come back up. But again, Ethereum's just kind of a little shooken right now based on all the recent sell-offs from Bitcoin. It's performing almost identical to Bitcoin. And if we kind of take a look here, I mean, Bitcoin has a similar pattern here where you got kind of this descending pattern. But I don't feel like we're going to go much lower just based on the support levels for Bitcoin right now. Again, don't know for sure. I think there's some news on Monday that we're going to be able to find out soon as well. So I would hold off on maybe taking a position until everything's kind of in the clear. But keep in mind, October is notoriously a really good month, so it wouldn't hurt for you to essentially invest in Ethereum or Bitcoin because they're both going to take off here in the very near future. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to Fantom. So let's take a look here, and we go to the 1-day chart first, as per usual. I've got a support/resistance level here. Previous resistance, current support at about 92 cents. So that's when the last time I looked at this, that was the major support at the time. It came down, it didn't fully test it, but it stayed above, which is great. So I would say the support is about 98 cents at this point. That's probably the more relevant support level to focus on. But what's cool is we got two major supports, so that obviously held there. But furthermore, the previous all-time high works typically as a very strong support level once it's broken. So we can say 92 to 98 cents is a nice little channel if in fact the price does kind of retrace and come back down there. Okay. Looking at the RSI, we're up over 50, which is great. So that's working essentially as a support level, and it's going to stay within 50 to 70 for a little while. We'll probably see Fantom continue to increase slowly because it is, it's a large market capitalization coin. A lot of large market cap coins right now are taking off. It's kind of a precursor to the altcoin season that we see a lot. So we're going to probably expect to see this continue to progress upwards. But I would say that it's hard to specify when it's going to take off. We do have more of a bearish divergence on the chart here, but you can kind of see this is ascending here. So long story short, I don't think we're going to see a significant amount of decrease in the near future here. I think it's pretty much only up for Fantom. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 4-hour chart. And to quickly note, we're above both 50 and the 200-day simple moving average. RSI is in between 50 and 70, but it's kind of broke above there. Not much to really note on the RSI, honestly. It doesn't really tell us much. It's kind of jumping around a lot. And when it does that, it's hard to really specify support and resistance zones. But generally speaking, the idea is that when you're above 50 and below 70 on the RSI, you're kind of more bullish than bearish, and that should continue, right? So now that we're up above 50, we should see a continuation of bullish momentum. Plus, we are making higher highs and higher lows on the last 24 to 48 hours. So that's a very, very good sign. We don't really have much to note on the MACD. We had a convergence a couple of days ago, but that's pretty standard considering the fact that it got pushed down so low. A lot of altcoins actually have that same pattern. So not much else to disseminate on the 4-hour chart here. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at the 1 hour and see if we got see if we're above the cloud. I'm sure we are. Yep, see, we broke above the cloud here roughly about 12 hours ago, and we're trending above. So this is a good sign as well. Again, we see the higher lows right there and the higher highs. So if we can continue to make those higher highs and higher lows, then we're going to be in good shape to continue on. Of course, I know that seems kind of redundant, but those are things you want to look for when taking entries. So, if all goes well, because again, this is a little bit on the overextended side, it's consolidated a little bit. If it comes down a little bit further, it'd be a good time to consider investing, maybe not just say the 120 to 125 range, and then essentially buy the dip when it comes back up to make higher highs and higher lows. But as you can see, it's kind of broken that downward pattern, and it is kind of breaking to the upside. So TD sequential, we're going to probably see a reset here. There we go. Yeah. So if you're new to TD sequential, it counts from a 1 to a 9. And at a 9, it typically should retrace or go sideways. So in other words, here we see the 9. Basically, this candlestick is higher than the 4th previous candlestick, so it kept counting up. But once you hit a 9, it's considered reaching a state of exhaustion. Therefore, this is fully exhausted. In other words, it hit this point right here where it should have retraced, but it continued upwards. So we had this little 5-6 hours of extra momentum. And what's kind of cool, if you look back here from this first candlestick all the way to the highest point, you're looking at about 26%. So that had an extra, I would say 10 or 15% on this little push up here, this little leg up. But when that happens, you want to kind of respect the fact that a good bull run needs to have kind of a staircase pattern. Okay. So in other words, we can kind of see it here. It's kind of coming up and over, right? I mean, I know it's going diagonal every, pretty much every every coin, everything that you look at in stock or currency or whatever it is that you're following, it has to kind of go diagonal, right, for the most part. But generally what I'm speaking about here is that you could even break it down like this here. We got a staircase pattern. So is there a potential for another leg up? Yeah, definitely. Especially now that it's consolidating and going sideways for a little while. So we've had a roughly about 10 hours of sideways continuation. So Fantom, if all goes well, should just continue to leg up. I would say that it's pretty safe to consider that. And, we might actually have a support, it might come down to try to test, which it does, around 127. Because as you can kind of see here, again, I prefer support and resistance levels on larger time frames. But if you see here, there was a strong resistance here at about 127, and it comes up and it's tested it roughly 2 or 3 times and bounced off of it. So I'd venture to guess that 127 would be the low point. So anywhere between 127 and 130 is not a bad entry point. Obviously, it could come down a little bit lower. Don't get me wrong, that very well could be the case. But at this point, with this nice little momentous, higher highs, higher lows, with the price kind of going sideways, I'd venture to guess we shouldn't see it go much lower than 127, as long as Bitcoin doesn't retrace, right? So keep that in mind. That's why we look at Bitcoin first, because if Bitcoin decides it goes down to 40,000 tomorrow or today, then that won't matter. Fantom will lose. It'll lose that support. It'll continue down. It'll probably test the channel of 92 to 98 cents. But again, if Bitcoin just continues to go sideways, kind of just the normal state of Bitcoin minus those those extreme increases, those legs ups and those legs down, then we're going to see this continue on to go sideways and probably bounce and continue to the upside. Okay. So again, all Bitcoin movement aside, Fantom is definitely bullish right now, and it's a nice healthy sign here. Because again, this decrease right here, this happened because of the sell-off from yesterday, right? So if this hadn't happened, then I would venture to guess that Fantom would probably be much higher, somewhere in the range of 150, 160. Again, we want to try to get it back up to its previous high of about 193. I think that's very realistic, but it needs to kind of slowly get there, if you will, right? So we don't need to see a super strong increase at this point. It will likely do another one of these. I'm venturing to guess it will do that once it breaks its most recent all-time high. But we need to have some momentum from Bitcoin first, right? Bitcoin needs to be trending towards 50,000 for us to see that, just simply based on the fact that altcoins, regardless of the coin, needs to have some kind of confidence in Bitcoin. Because while the market capitalization is coming from Bitcoin going to these large market capitalization coins, we also need to kind of see Bitcoin doing well, right? We can't see these major sell-offs like we've seen recently and expect these coins to continue to fly off the charts, right? It doesn't happen very often, right? Unless there's a fundamental catalyst, some kind of strong, something on the side that we don't see that causes it to come up. All right, anyways, that's kind of the 1 hour chart. So let's take a look at the 15. Quick look at EMA and VWAP and kind of see where we're at. Presently, we're below VWAP. But it is testing the support level here. So see, as you can see, comes down here, loses EMA and VWAP, bounces right back up after it tests the support level. So all in all, we've got some pretty good things going for us. Again, this nice support here at about 127, as well as the fact that the price is kind of hovering here. Now keep in mind, EMA and VWAP really doesn't matter much when we have just a state of consolidation, which is where we're at right now. We've had about 7 to 10 hours of consolidation, some sideways action here. And in this case, EMA and VWAP doesn't really tell us much. But what it is telling us is when we lose it prior, the support level is holding. These are all very good things here. Basically just means that Fantom does have more potential to continue to increase. So what I would do is, if you're considering an entry point right now, just say, for example, you do not have a position, you want to try to take an entry, anywhere between 125 or 135 would be a good entry point. Right. Now, again, I say 125 because there is a chance if Bitcoin sells off, the price will come below the support level. However, it is holding pretty well as a good support because even though it broke before, it kind of bounced back. So that tells me that, Fantom shouldn't go much lower than just say 125. So if you're considering an entry, again, try to buy closer to support here at 127. But just say you were to get in at 127, it comes down and bounces, you're going to be just fine, because there's a lot of good support channels here for Fantom. So I think that we're all in all in pretty good shape. And if you currently have a position, consider holding on to it, because I think it's going to continue to increase. Yes, it'll go up and down as we've seen so far, but I think the downs will be less likely now that we are fairly low on Bitcoin, if that makes any sense. In other words, Bitcoin being where it's at right now, I think there's a strong chance that this will continue to progress upwards while Bitcoin goes sideways. And that's usually the good sign, right? We like to see coins like this increasing when Bitcoin is doing more so sideways action. So if you look at the 15-minute chart on Bitcoin, see how Bitcoin came up and has just gone sideways? But then we look at this here and see what Fantom's done since then. That's a really good sign. Now, part of it is because of the fact that Bitcoin caused it to come down, and most altcoins are about 1.5, 2.5 times the movement as Bitcoin, right? So of course it's going to increase that much. But not every altcoin is doing what Fantom is doing right now, and that's a really good sign. It shows that the average true range should be higher than where it's at right now, because it would have been much higher hadn't we had these two sell-offs, right? So again, there's just something, some things to kind of consider. But just be careful, and again, recommend at all times always have a good stop loss in place. Some people say the common rule of thumb is 10%. It really just depends on where you're at in your portfolio, right? But with something like this, I would say maybe a slightly tighter stop loss might be advantageous to consider, just based on the fact that it's the way that it moves so far. You may as well, because heaven forbid, just say you have a tight stop loss, you get stopped out. The price continues to go lower. You can buy in at a lower state. But until Bitcoin decides it wants to slowly start to increase past 44,000, then I would be kind of cautious and careful and just keep a tighter stop loss. But yeah, the general rule of thumb, in case you're unfamiliar, is about 10%. Sometimes, and me personally, I do 15 to 20% for my swing trades, just simply put based on the fact that there's, when Bitcoin moves 5%, most altcoins move 10%, and you can get stopped out kind of early. And even in some cases, if it's coins that I really truly believe in and I can tell that the patterns are looking good, I don't even have a stop loss at all. I know that seems crazy, but for swing trades, hodl trades, I'm not investing my entire portfolio. It's only 2 to 3% at a time. So I have no problem if the price wavers and jumps up or jumps down at any given time. I set my profit targets, yes, but sometimes a stop loss is unnecessary for coins like these that are so volatile. I hope that makes sense. And feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'm available on Telegram and all the other social medias, of course. But generally speaking, I forgot to mention this too. I usually try to allude to it because it is helpful. We actually had a very good success rate here recently. With my Patron account, feel free to check that out. Link in the description below. I actually provide signals to all of my trades. So every single trade that I take with my community members, I provide that to them with entry points, profit targets, sell targets, everything you need to know to be successful. And we're doing swing trades, day trades, and hodl trades. And it's been a really awesome experience so far. I'm about 83% success rate right now with my day trading. And the swing trades, of course, they're kind of open. You can't really have a specific percentage there, but the profit, I think the average profit's close to about 50% right now. So it's decent, definitely everything going well, but if you kind of just need somebody on your side, feel free to check that out. It's kind of a nice little, reassurance here. But regardless, it's been a great experience. I really appreciate you joining me here today. We'll look forward to seeing the next video, and you take good care of yourself.